Going. All right, we're live. Welcome, Denzel, to the Cam Jones podcast. You're my third guest. Good to have you on, bro. What's been happening?
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate you having me on. I guess I just moved down to Dallas from Iowa in the last couple of weeks. So really just trying to figure stuff out down here, how life's lived down here. I played lad in Q school last week, so I managed to get through and got a couple of weeks in Dallas before heading off to the first event. So life is pretty good right now. Yeah, it's nice to have somewhere to play.
That's cool, man. I think I don't know if the people that end up listening to this, if they don't know too much about you, I'm just going to list through a few things that you've done, because you've achieved quite a lot over your career, and it's only sort of just getting started. So we'll run through it. We'll head back to your college and amateur days, and I'm sure we'll probably touch on quite a lot of these as well. But you've done some pretty cool things. You were teammates with Luke Toomey for the mighty Waikato, winning 2 interprovincial titles. Your first team academic All Big 12 at Iowa State. You led the team in top 10 finishes, birdies, eagles, and stroke average in your senior year at Iowa State. And then you were part of the World Amateur Teams Championship with Dan Hillier and Kerry Mountcastle back in 2018, which I'm sure we'll elaborate on some of those experiences. But that's those are some pretty cool things that you've done in your short career, mate.
Thanks, Cam. Yeah, appreciate that. I actually haven't heard a couple of those before, so that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you I mean, we've obviously known each other for, going back to the early days as juniors. I think you're a few years younger than me. How old are you now?
25 at the moment. Yeah.
25, so cool, man. Well, let's we'll dive in, and the first question that we've got is the early days, mate. Where and how did you get started in the game of golf?
Yeah, I guess from a pretty young age, I showed an interest in playing golf, I think. Mum and Dad tell me when I was like 2 or something, I just started whacking stuff around the house with a stick. So they got me like a little plastic set of clubs. And I used to just hit it around in the backyard and stuff. And I think when I started showing interest in the game, Dad said he'd start playing as well. So Dad found like an old wooden 5-wood. He like cut it in half and put some duct tape on the end as a grip, and I kind of used that as my one club. And Dad started learning at the same time, and so did my granddad. So I was born in Wellington, so we kind of grew up playing a little bit around Judgeford, which is where my granddad ended up being a member. That was kind of my introduction early, and ever since then, I think I've loved the game. It was my first sport, and it was cool to have like my dad and my granddad play at the same time.
How old were you at this point when you were playing down at Judgeford?
Yes, I think I started hitting stuff when I was about 2. Maybe started playing Judgeford when I was like 7 or 8. It was a cool spot. And then after that, we kind of moved up to Hamilton. I joined up at St Andrews on the junior program, and that was awesome. We had like maybe 30 to 40 juniors there. I was one of the younger ones, but it was always cool to play with the older guys, I thought. There was a good little group of them. They kind of showed me the ropes. We had 2 awesome ladies that looked after us, Marion Kingham and Barb Corkle. They kind of ran the junior program, and that was a lot of fun. I feel like we could pretty much play golf like every day after school. You could hang around and have like putting comps for Pro Vs and stuff for ages.
Yeah.
Kind of that little junior group there was almost like basis for our Waikato teams that we grew up playing in. So, I mean, that's kind of where I met like Toomey and Cougs and
you guys had a good crop, eh?
Yeah, we had a real good crop of guys growing up, so that was a lot of fun. We actually had a little stint where we moved down to Invercargill. Dad was working on the hospital down there, so we ended up playing at Queen's Park. And that was pretty fun because then obviously in Invercargill it's light for ages in the summer. So we could just about finish school at 3 o'clock and play 36. So that was pretty fun. But I guess from a young age I've loved playing, and I've always had a lot of support from my family, which I'm really lucky for. And then I've always had, friends that I've loved playing too. Even my friends that played other sports, they now love playing golf. Few of them are off single digits, but they all played other sports, so they've got decent hand-eye and pick it up pretty quick. So No, it's awesome. It's a great game. I love how anyone can play, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, epic, bro. Epic. So you were a Hamilton Boys old boy, and then if we sort of talk about how you developed your game growing up, you went to Hamilton Boys, but you practiced and played out of St. Peter's. Is that true?
Yeah. So I started seeing Rion Sayer. Might have been a year 9 or a year 10, and he coaches out at St. Peter's with Simon Thomas. So we decided to go out there, and he was the first guy who gave me some real lessons, and I think that was a good thing for me. Getting a bit of structure to my practice and a bit of direction in terms of playing and competition and stuff. And I loved it. They're like family to me now, and I still work really closely with Rion. He's my primary coach. I think we've got a great relationship and got a lot of trust in the big fella.
What was that like for you growing up, obviously loving to play the game, but then how did you balance the practice and the training side of it as opposed to the playing? Or are you still someone that, is a bit like Foxy who just likes to get, play holes, get runs on the board out there?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely, I'd say you go through phases, I think. Like when I was a kid, I loved playing. When I came to Iowa State, you don't play as frequently, I think, in college. You might play 12 to 13 events. So in our full semester, we play 4 events. And then you kind of have 2 to 3 months off where it's snowing. So it's it's kind of hard to play golf. So you have to learn how to practice, I guess.
Yeah.
So for me, Voki was a big guide for me in learning how to practice, learning how to play games in practice to simulate playing.
Yeah.
I probably did that for a couple of years, and then ever since I turned pro, I've definitely become more of a player, and I enjoy playing far more than practicing right now.
Yeah.
So every day I'll kind of do all my maintenance stuff. We'll do a couple practice games, but the biggest chunk of my time, if I'm in improving stages, I'd way rather play a money game somewhere.
Yeah. On that note, if you're talking about maintenance stuff, what are some of the things that you look for? What are some of the things that you're working on?
Yeah, we'll probably start with putting. My putting's been a big thing that we've been working on the last 2 to 3 months. I've putted well my last couple of events, so first time I've seen that in a while. So I guess big things we do is a bit of start line stuff. So for me, it's key for my posture. My tendency for me is I get quite rounded in my shoulders. My hips kind of bump back into the open. They get open a little bit. So always staying on top of my tendencies, which is where Rion's been really helpful because obviously he's got a very tuned eye to that stuff. And the first thing to, understanding your tendencies is knowing what they are and how out of kilter they can get, and then having some sort of strategy to bring them back. That's kind of why I call it maintenance stuff. So we do a lot of PAL stuff for start line, string line stuff.
Is that the putting through the 2 little balls on that little contraption? Yeah, that's a good one.
So every day I just like to try and hit 10 putts through that, and then once I do that, I can start my actual practice.
Yeah.
So we do some PAL stuff. The biggest emphasis the last couple of months has been on speed. So we kind of do a drill. I used Decade for quite a while. So on their website, there's lots of videos and drills and stuff. So there's a video of Maverick McNeely doing a speed drill. It's basically a speed drill from 5 to 30 feet with an uphill putt and a downhill putt. And it's kind of just every day you're dialing in your pace control. And I think the more I've come to understand putting, most of it is speed.
So much of it's speed, eh?
Yeah. Your start line, most guys can start it online 90% of the time. But the speed is probably where you're gaining the most strokes. You're giving yourself the biggest chance to hold the putt. And more importantly, when you're outside of a realistic holding chance, making sure you're 2-putting is the main thing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. If your speed control is good, it takes so much pressure off your iron play because you can just hit it at a more conservative target and kind of accumulate a score instead of chasing it, which is what I'm learning to do because my tendency is always been
aggressive.
Hit it at the pin. Yes, I'm learning how to play golf, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, cool, man. And then what about some of the? We'll touch on some of the full swing stuff real quick because that's obviously, if anybody knows your game, driving and wedges is probably the clubs that you hit the most. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I do hit it pretty far, so that's always good to have.
Pretty far.
I think like full swing stuff, same as putting. Like it always comes down to setup for me to begin with. So I have the same tendencies as my putting. Like my hips tend to creep back and open, and then my shoulder plane tends to get open as well. With that, my right hand grip gets weaker and weaker. So for me, I start getting over the top with the face open and hitting bigger fades.
Okay.
So we just pretty much have to rein that in. That's what all my maintenance practice is reining those tendencies in. So when we practice, we pretty much only hit draws, like when I'm doing my maintenance stuff, because it's the opposite of what I like to do.
Okay.
We kind of figured like when I'm playing my best, I feel like I can rip it way left and it's going to fade a couple yards. So
that's nice.
We feel like in order to do that, we almost become like draw bias in practice. So that way when I step on the course, I can rip it way left and it's almost a dead straight shot.
That's really nice.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the philosophy we work off, I guess. We kind of do a lot of postural stuff, making sure that's all in check. Once that's good, the tendency at takeaway is it gets like handsy and then lifty in the backswing. And then I pull from the top, which gets steep. So it's all about like how can I make the body turn off the ball, keep the hands nice and deep. And then our long-term project is always getting my pelvis in a better position through impact. To quieten the face down and have less manipulation with my hands. But yeah, that's kind of what we do. I've got a few drills that I do to keep that stuff in check. One of them is like I like to chuck a tour stick down the shaft and then hold it under my left hand, and that kind of helps me feel like kind of like a dead arm swing. I'd say there's almost like no wrist hinge, so it's like it's all body. That's a good feel for me, especially in my takeaway.
And is that coming out the left side of your body?
So it's pretty much like up the shaft.
Yeah.
All the way up like halfway up the left arm, maybe like half the way up the forearm.
Yeah.
And then from there, I'm just feeling like it's just a body turn away from the ball. And I like that feeling because it keeps me almost feeling like one piece. It feels connected, and I feel like I'm not using my wrist to do anything.
And are these drills that you don't waver from? Like now that you know that this is your blueprint, like this is what you're doing daily, this is the stuff that you don't really, go too far from these drills?
Yeah, not normally. I mean, Rion's given me like a little toolbox of drills, I think. So like when he sees a certain tendency creep in, then we've got like certain drills, I think, that help pull it in back to like a spot where you can still play well,
Yeah.
And I think that's what the really good guys are good at. They understand their tendencies a lot quicker than like a new person would, they've been doing it for multiple years. They know how to play 6 or 7 weeks on the road, so they can keep on top of their tendencies and catch it before it swings too far from neutral, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. How long did it take you to develop that little toolbox, do you reckon, to the point where now you kind of know with certainty that this is what you're working on?
Oh, I think it always takes a while, and like sometimes one drill won't feel good, like it won't work. So another substitute to that tour stick drill is like we like using an elbow ball. When I'm on the road, I just travel with like a little bag of balloons. So I just put that in there. It's a really similar feel, like a one piece, like no wrist hinge move. We do one with like a glove under the right armpit when my right elbow gets a little wingy. And then the same thing with the left side if I feel like I'm just getting disconnected with my left arm. Along with those, we'll do like a towel drill where it's under. I do it a lot for pitching. So it feels like my body's like the pitching motion. So they're all like pretty similar drills, like trying to maintain like this, Yeah,
just the shape.
Maintain that shape. That's kind of what we do for the backswing stuff. I don't really like feeling stuff in my hands. I don't like feeling stuff on the downswing. I'm more like I'd like to get things in position and then just go. stuff with the pelvis. Like we do like a bucket drill, we call it. So we like stack 2 range buckets on the outside of my left leg. So then through impact, all I'm trying to do is like not touch the buckets. I'm trying to like push off the left side and get deep with the left hip to like
get try to go a bit more vertical.
Yeah, let the pelvis pull you into rotation. So that's kind of the goal with that. Like sometimes some drills feel good, sometimes other drills feel terrible. But I think like having someone that you trust who gives you guidance to do that stuff is pretty big.
Yeah, that's real cool. I'm pretty sure, that little, 5-10 minute chat about what you're up to there will probably keep quite a lot of the, I think it'll be interesting to a lot of the golf nerds out there that do listen to this. But on that, how long have you, so you've been with Rion now for what, 12, 13 years? Would that be about right?
Yeah, maybe just under, maybe 10 years.
Just 10 years? Oh, yeah. Well, that's really cool. I find that sort of stuff pretty interesting now that I'm sort of in the coaching space and just trying to have players and, students try and see the long-term benefit from working with one person. But that's real cool, man. We'll move on to the next part and we'll get into it because I think the last 5 or 6 years have been pretty exciting, transitioning from, like, you graduated or you actually transferred from, was it Waikato Uni, over to Iowa. Well, we'll dive into the time over at Iowa. So I think you went over there, was it in 2015? Was that when you first went?
January of 2016. So I finished high school 2013. I did 2 years at Waikato.
Yep.
On the Sir Edmund Hillary Scholarship, and that was awesome. But I kind of always wanted to play college golf. I had the opportunity to go over to Iowa State out of high school. And I think I was just a little bit scared to go. Like, it was a big move, other side of the world. I didn't think I was like good enough at golf to like make the team straight away. So we decided to stay in New Zealand, do a year here, see how we go. Ended up doing another year here because I was still pretty scared to go. And then finally, like I was convinced to do it, and I think that was like the best thing for me. Kind of teaches you to grow up a little bit, moving to the other side of the world. Like, I didn't even know how to like use a washing machine or anything, or like cook or anything. So I'm still not a very good cook, but like I think off the course, like, it teaches you to grow up a little bit and mature a little bit. So I think naturally on the course it helps you. I think you become more of a problem solver. Let's put it that way. But I started there in January of 2016. When I landed, it was like negative 18 degrees Celsius. It was,
and you would have been living a hot summer here, right?
Yeah, it was a pretty big culture shock. But it was great. Like, the coaching staff was awesome. We had a great group of guys. We had a few Kiwis on the team during my time there, a couple Aussies. So it felt like everyone was in the same boat. We were all we were all doing the same thing, coming from the same place. It was nice to have people that like did it before me, and like Duncan, DSAC, and Voki as well, who was on the team with me. So having their guidance, telling me like what to do and also what not to do. And then like guys like Ruben Sanjaya from Sydney, he was an awesome little mentor and friend for me as well. So
and was Sam Daly there when you were there as well?
No, I think Sam was the same year as DSAC, so I missed them by a year.
Right, okay.
Epic. So you
I'm sure you do. He goes well, that man, on the source. But we'll keep it focused on the golf and focus on you for this one, Dens. So tell us a bit about what your most memorable experience from your time at Iowa State. And I imagine there was probably heaps, whether it was tournament related, whether it was some of the football games, because I know Iowa's a pretty big football and basketball. I think they do quite well as well. Let's talk a little bit about some of your experiences from your time at college.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. It was a pretty different experience. We've got 36,000 students at Iowa State on like a massive, beautiful campus. So that was always cool. Like, you walk around every day to class, and kind of a usual day for us in season would look like you'd wake up in the morning around 6 and you'd be in the gym by like 6:15, 6:30. We grab some breakfast at like 7:30, and then you go to class from like 8 to 12, I guess. We'd have time to go out to practice from after lunch, maybe 1 to 5. Then you'll go to your tutoring for like 5:30 to 6:30, 7, I guess. Go have some dinner, and then do your homework, and then you're like kind of free in college, so you do what you want. They're pretty like busy days when you first get there, but once you learn how to manage your time a bit better, it definitely doesn't feel as stressful.
Imagine it's probably quite routine based.
Yeah, pretty routine based, but man, some of the best times are just with the fellas, though, like having dinner together, going to the gym together. Everyone wants to play golf every day, so that's always cool. But in terms of tournaments, probably my first semester, I played really well. Maybe my third event, fourth event, maybe we played at ASU's event, Arizona State, at Carson, which is ASU's home course. And I played really well through the first 2 days. The team was playing really well too. And I managed to get in the final group with John Rahm. And I was like, man, this is epic. I know Vokey had played with him one of the 2 previous days leading up to it. And he was just telling me like how good he was. And I think I might have been
one at the time.
Amateur, I think he was.
Yeah.
And I'm like fresh off the boat in the States. Like haven't really played well up until then. And that was pretty cool, watching him play. But the coolest thing about it was the team was playing really well too. So I think I was tied for the lead individually going to the last day. And John beat me by like 6 or 7 and he won the tournament by heaps. So I was like out of the individual thing, but we were just trying to get a team title. And ASU like always had a good field. Like Colin Morikawa played it there with Cal. John was there. There were quite a few players, just top 10 amateurs in the world playing that week, I think.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty eye-opening experience. Like, well, this is very different to back home. Like, these are the best players in the world any given week in the college event, and you get to compete against them, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Probably the one of my most memorable experiences, though, is like the last hole is a par 4, maybe 450 yards, 430 yards, water up the left, and I had double bogeyed the 15th hole, and I looked at the leaderboard, and we were like 5 or 6 back. What I didn't know is that the 4 guys in front of us through the last 3 holes had all played them like 7 or 8 under. So we were maybe only 1 back going on to the last round. And I'm playing with this kid from a different school, and he ended up, his school was in the lead. He snap hooked it out of bounds into the water, left. He then blocked his next one way right, hit it over the back, and hit it on. He might have made a triple bogey or something. I ended up making 4, and that was like our first team title in a while. But it was pretty sweet to win like ASU's tournament, and I had no idea the whole time. It was like that was pretty cool opening to college, I think.
Yeah, that's epic. And then if you were to touch on, something away from the tournaments, some of the times that you have, like football games that you might have been to. Tell us about some of that.
We've always been a big basketball school, and I love watching basketball. So watching those guys play, it's pretty cool. We became pretty close friends with a couple of the guys, and there's maybe 4 or 5 of them play in the league now. And they all like golf as well, so it's cool to kind of relate on that level. Football games are crazy. I think our stadium sits maybe 60,000, and our fan base is like huge. They travel everywhere. In America, there's a thing called tailgating. So basically, there'll be like before the football game, there'll be like 100,000 people in the parking lot, like drinking beers, eating food. They've got their little TV set up, so it's just like a big party before the game. It's a lot of fun, eh? So I love like Iowa State, love college sports. It's a good time.
That's epic, man. Well, we'll move on to I wanted to have a chat about the 2018, the World Amateur Teams Championship, because I think from memory, you're playing with Dan and playing with Kerry, and Dan's obviously, as most people listening to this probably know, just missed out on his European Tour card. He's had a great year up in Europe this year, but that you guys came so close. Like, as you know, like that was what was that experience like? Tell us about that, because I know that were you again in the final group at that event going into the last round? Like you and Dan were both playing really, really well.
Yeah, we were playing well. I think we might have been in the last group with Spain, definitely. Maybe the US.
Yeah,
I don't know, but
and that
we were
US team I
definitely the
think
team.
had. Yeah, I
Colin.
mean, I think that US team had Colin Morikawa, and I think that was it the Denmark team that won it, and they had the Hogard twins.
Yeah, yeah, they were pretty good. Rasmussen, Nick,
Nicola, I
is
think
it?
his name is.
Nicola,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, they were pretty awesome, man, watching them play. And they were pretty young at that tournament
yeah,
too.
they must have been.
But it was a pretty stacked team. Like, I knew Spain was good. I'd played with Alex, the kid who won in the end. He played at Arizona State, so I'd play college golf with him. He's a
Yeah.
great player. I'd obviously the US guys, like I know who was there? Colin Morikawa. I know Cole was playing.
Justin
remember who
Sutt from looking at the
Justin,
leaderboard.
yeah. Justin
Yeah,
was playing. So that team is like fully stacked. They're all like
yeah,
top 10 in the world. Everyone knows how
yeah,
good Colin is now. He was just as good when he was an amateur. Trust me.
yeah.
Um, but that was fun. Like, go to toe with those guys was pretty sweet.
Yeah,
We had a pretty cool support staff, and Jay and Bryce and
yeah.
Dan and Kerry were awesome teammates, but we loved it. I was pretty nervous going into the final round, not gonna lie.
I bet.
And I was especially nervous going into the last 3 or 4 holes. I think I was still either had a one-shot lead or tied for the lead in the individual standings with
Hmm.
Alex, and I came home like in an ambulance. I might have finished the last three like double par or something. I
Okay.
remember spinning an 8-iron off the green on 16 into the water, and I was just like shocked. I was like, wow, that's so good.
Yeah.
I think I was still pretty rattled. I pulled the next one out of bounds on the par 5, 17. And then 18, I was just like a little bit deflated.
Right.
Because, like, yeah, I lost the chance of the individual, but it's also like we would have had a real good chance of the team title. No, that's the main
Yeah.
goal. So for me, that was a pretty big learning experience. Learning
Yeah.
how
What were
to
some of the
handle.
learnings that you could take from that?
I had really had to learn how to control my breathing. I think when I get
Okay.
nervous and uncomfortable, your breath gets really short. You get tense. You kind of lose track of what you're actually doing in the moment, and you think about
Yeah.
like what could be. So for
Hmm.
me in that moment, I knew shit as I got to learn how to control, like still function when I feel
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So that's good in that respect. I'm glad that happened at an amateur event and not a professional event, which I'm sure it will still happen at a professional event. But to have
Yeah.
that learning experience early on was good. But man, it was such a fun week.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. You
it's
guys are
every
building something pretty special, that team.
yeah, I think it's every Kiwi's goal, like the amateur guys, to play in Eisenhower, and to have
Definitely.
the opportunity to do that was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Especially because our last team was so good as well with Oki, Toombs, and Chiz. Like that's stacked as well.
Yeah.
So to have like Dan, Kerry, and myself there, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, that was some good times. Well, that's cool, mate. We'll head on. We'll head into 2019, which your rookie year as a pro. When did you? What month did you turn professional in 2019?
I might have been February. I think my first event was the Queensland PGA.
Okay, so just to give a bit of insight or backstory to some of these, like some of the results that you had, and to be clear, did you only have status on the Australasian tour? Is that right?
Yeah, the whole year I only had status on Aussie.
On the Australasian tour. So, I'll just rattle through some of the results, and they're not in chronological order, but you dominated the Mount Open. I think you were 29 under par on the Charles Tour, absolutely cleaning everybody up there. But then I'll list through the rest of them. So you finished 4th in the Diamond Cup in Japan. Aussie Open, you finished 5th. New South Wales Open, you finished 6th. The New Zealand PGA, you finished 7th. And I'll get to another event that I want to talk about shortly as well. But you then also Monday qualified into 2 events on the Corn Ferry Tour. We had top 25s in consecutive weeks. But for me, I think, and I remember following this because I think it was the Aussie PGA where you finished 10th. But yeah, I think you shot like 77 or something, or 76 in the first round, and then you just went ballistic for the last 3 to cap off a pretty epic year. Let's talk about the year of 2019, mate.
Yeah, no, it was pretty sweet, man. It was cool, like turning pro, leaving college. Obviously, spent a lot more time back home.
Yeah.
Very different to college. professional golfers. Is one thing you notice. In college, like, it's awesome. You stay at the nicest hotels, you get free food, you play at the nicest golf courses. Your coach like plans every event down to a T. And suddenly, when you turn pro, like you have to do everything on your own. I didn't have a manager or an agent or anything to help me book anything, so my mum helped me to start. But like, even just like logistics, like booking flights, rental cars, accommodation, that was all completely new to me. So it was nice to like have some guidance with that.
Yeah.
But turning pro was cool. I played Q School while I was an amateur at the second half of 2018. So I stayed at Iowa State an extra semester to keep my visa for an extra 6 months so I could play Corn Free Tour Q School. So I didn't play on the golf team, but I played at like a full summer of events. So I played like the Northeast, Sunnyhana, Western. I didn't qualify for the USAM. But then my goal was to make the Eisenhower. So I played the Eisenhower. Then I played after that first stage of Q School. Got through first stage of Q School in a nice fashion. I think I was 3 or 4 out of the cut line going into the last day. I shot 8 under on the last day to get through. That next week, it was sweet. The next week, flew to Singapore, played the Asian Am, then came back for second stage at Bear Creek. I missed the second stage by, I think, 3 shots in the end. And then that kind of put me in the boat. Well, now I'm going to Aussie Q School. So I went to Aussie Q School in December on the way home for Christmas. Got through there, and then I think I got decent status because I think I got into most events. And then my first event was the Queensland PGA. And it was sweet. Like, Toowoomba's a nice place to make your professional career, your professional debut. The course was like so tight and like kind of rough. So my plan was just like hit driver, and then it's really tight. So like you can either hit irons and then hit like full wedges or short irons into the greens, or you can just try hit driver really hard and then like chip it on the greens. So I remember my first 9 holes, I was like going to be really disciplined this week and hit irons off the tees. And it just didn't work. So I was like, screw it. It's just hit heaps of drivers. And then it worked out good. I think I played right that week. And then kind of hit the ground running from there. But yeah, I didn't have status anywhere except for Aussie. So you have nowhere to play during the middle of the year. My plan was always to go back to the US, try and Monday my way on and play my way onto the Corn Ferry Tour. Which I ended up doing in Omaha, Nebraska. I think I Mondayed. Might have came like 22nd or something that first week, which was cool. I didn't feel like I played that great, but I still came 22nd, so that was good. The next week, did the same thing in Springfield, Missouri. The next week, I was exempt into the final 2 events of the season. And if I had played well there, I could have made the playoffs, the Corn Ferry Tour finals. My visa, I was on an ESTA visa and my 3 months had run up. So
you're kidding.
Yeah, I had to leave the country, and I didn't play those last 2 events in the end, which would have been pretty big looking back on it. But that's how it goes when you're an international sometimes.
That's tough. Was there a way that you could have got that visa sorted? Like if you had someone like a manager or someone able to, be in the back end sort of sorting that stuff out, would that have made a difference?
Yeah, I think I had a few options to like fly to. I think Turkey was a spot I could have flown to. I couldn't go to Canada or Mexico. I think the thing that was tough was we didn't know if we could get back in time for the next event,
Right.
Because you can like fly to a different place and then fly back to the US, but they can deny you entry. So it was like, we just don't have the right visa for this. So that was a tough decision then, but at least it gave me confidence knowing I can play out there.
Yeah, for sure.
You just have to get out there. That's a really hard thing. But I played a couple of events in Asia throughout the middle of the year. That was cool. The one on the Diamond Cup was cool because it got me into the Japan Open.
Yeah, how did you get into that Diamond Cup event?
I actually got an invite in the end from Phil Hassel.
You made the most of that.
Yeah, that was cool. I think I came like in 4th that week or something.
Yeah.
I remember that. I think I played like 1.5 rounds. It was like pretty average golf. And then I think I might have shot like 4 or 5 under in my last 9 holes to make the cut and race up the leaderboard.
Yeah.
It was a really difficult course. It was really long. The rough was thick. The greens are really firm and fast. So it's just like a really tough course. And I think that suits me a little bit, especially playing in Japan. Guys don't really hit it that fast. So I felt like if I drive it good, I've got a pretty clear advantage on most of the field, which is why I think a lot of the Aussie guys have played really well in Japan for a while. They have a big distance advantage. So I guess that week I took advantage of that. I didn't have the last round that I wanted, but it was cool to be in. I think that was my first final group. So that was cool.
And they've got some pretty excitable fans in Japan, don't they?
Yeah, they love it, especially when you like rip a drive and everyone's like, ooh. So that was pretty cool. The people are awesome. Everyone like bows to you when you walk by. Makes you feel kind of bad almost.
Yeah.
Because we're from New Zealand and people are pretty relaxed, right? So they're like, they love it. But that was a cool week. I loved it. I love Japan. The food's great.
Yeah.
The courses are awesome. The players and the fans are cool as well. So that was a lot of fun. So that fourth got me into the Japan Open later in the year, which was probably the hardest course I've ever played. It was not even 7,000 yards, and I think the only person who was under par was the winner. He might shot like 1 under or something. I think I shot 16 or 17 over, and I might have come 50th. It was just like ridiculously hard around the greens, and it wasn't long at all. But if you missed the green, you're pretty much making bogey every time. It was just that hard to chip and putt.
Yeah.
So that was it was almost like
that personally.
Yeah, it was like a deflating week. But then you look at everyone else's scores and you're like, well, it's not that bad.
Yeah, for sure. So did you just remembering it, was the Mount Open the final event of the year for you in 2019 when you capped it off?
So I'm trying to think. I went and played Japan Q School the end of that year. I played Corn Free for Q School. I missed first stage. Played pretty bad. After that, I went to Japan. I was exempted the second stage. So I played really good at second stage. Might have shot like 10 or 11 under the first round and then shot like even for the last 3 days. That was pretty funny. And then that got me into third stage a couple weeks later, which started the Aussie streak. So I played Japan third stage. I missed. And if I had made it through that one, final stage was the same week as the Aussie Open.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't have played the Aussie Open, which looking back,
that's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Good thing that I missed, So it's I don't know, a good thing in hindsight. So I played Japan third stage. I came back, played the New South Wales Open, which was sweet. I stayed with Vokey for the week, just outside of Sydney. And then the week after, played the Aussie Open, and then the Mount Open, and then Aussie PGA to finish the year. So that was kind of the stretch where I played really well. That was
a hell of a way to cap off the year with those events. So let's we'll move on to the last couple of years. Like obviously, the world of professional golf has changed quite a bit. Certain tours not having Q schools and all that kind of thing. Let's head back into last year. How was 2020? What did you get up to and where did you play?
Yeah, so I came after our initial lockdown in New Zealand. I came back to the States.
So you were here for that last year?
For the 8-week lockdown or something, I was there for that. I think my last world ranking event was the New Zealand Open, and then after that, it's everything kind of hit the fan. Yep. So I came back. I played a bunch of mini tour stuff. Played on the Outlaw Tour, the APT Tour, the Unbridled Tour, which is one down in Florida. They're just heaps of mini tour stuff, and then played a lot of Monday qualifiers. I played pretty average in the mini tour stuff, and I didn't get through any Mondays. It was tough. I might have played 10 Monday qualifiers and got through none, which is it was just hard, and I wasn't playing that well. Yeah, I mean you're paying $500 for an entry fee for a Monday US. You're paying $500 for a flight and a couple hundred for a hotel for one day. One thing I did was put a lot of pressure on myself, I think, during the Monday qualifiers in 2020 to get through, which is not the mindset you want to be in for those. So you want to mentally be pretty free. You want to be free flowing and just go play good golf. And pretty much every week you got to shoot, 7 to 10 under. That's pretty much the benchmark.
For one round of golf.
Yeah. So just a Monday qualifying to the tournament. So
Yeah.
It's tough going, but if you can do it, man, patience. It teaches you a lot of patience. You've got to learn how to play Monday qualifiers without chasing a score, kind of, So you're just trying to build a number instead of chasing it, because it's so easy to try to chase a score, get behind a little early, and then you force it, and then you're done,
Yeah.
It's a tough grind, but again, if you do Monday qualifying, you have an opportunity to play your way on, and then if you're good enough, you will. Hard thing's just doing that.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed the challenge in hindsight. There are a lot of things that I learned from it. One, like how to accumulate a score rather than try and chase one. How to be patient in a Monday qualifier. All things that I think when I do play them again next year, hopefully help me, Hopefully help me stay a bit more in the present and play a bit better during them.
Nice, mate. So what about towards the back end of last year and then into this year? Like, from what I understand and people I've spoken to that are living in the US now, like, life's pretty relatively normal. Like, obviously COVID still exists and is still around, but you've been able to play a bit. You've been able to travel around. And whereabouts have you been, and what have you been up to?
Yeah, so I was pretty much back in Ames, Iowa, using our practice facility there in our course, the Harvester.
Isn't that the best?
It's so cool, man. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why Voki and I love it there and still spend a lot of time there, and when it's warm. I spent the winter down in Arizona. I played out at TPC there. Thankful to have some good family friends who had me for a couple months down there.
Awesome.
So that was good. People from Iowa. So that was nice to have some events down there. So I played the Outlaw Tour, which they do like 2 to 4 round events in Arizona. Give you an idea on the numbers. I think you pay about $500 to $1,200 for an entry fee, and then like 90% of that's paid out in the purse. There'll be like, I think the smallest event there might be 40 people. The biggest one is like 150 people. Mm-hmm. So the purses can vary quite a bit, from the winner getting sometimes 5K to the winners would sometimes win 20. So it's
and you've got guys that are like ex-tour playing here, right?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of times, Nick and I, we played one, and like Robert Garrigus was playing. Trying to think of some of the other guys there. But a lot of the PGA Tour guys play it in the winter to like just keep the game sharp,
Yeah.
But it's a good place to be. You run into tour pros every day. Remember at TPC, like Scott Stallings was out there.
Yeah.
Max Homer was out there. It's cool, like rubbing shoulders with those guys and get to play 9 holes with the odd tour play every now and then and see how they play.
And see how you stack up. What would you say is, I guess, from being over in the environment of, where the PGA Tour actually is and being able to play and compete against these guys for probably the last 4 or 5 years, has it been a pretty big move for you to go there to see and know that your game does stack up with guys over there, as opposed to feeling like, if you were to travel over to the US, say now, if you've been over here up until this point, would it feel like such a big transition, or how would you gauge that? Yeah,
I think that's the benefit of college. Like, you kind of do all of your adjusting to a new country during college, and then once you finish, like for me now, the US feels like another home, and it's a big place, but like I don't feel uncomfortable at all anywhere in the US. This is just somewhere else that I've been, that I've lived, so it feels more comfortable than maybe now. If I was in New Zealand, decided to move over, it feels like a massive trip and commitment,
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. Like, we have a lot of contacts from our alumni network from Iowa State. Lots of guys you meet throughout amateur golf that they'll invite you to play certain places, or they might help you be a member at a certain course, or if you have a tournament somewhere, you can, stay at their place for the week. Little things like that, I think, make it feel like the US isn't so big and not so far away. Yeah. But in terms of the game thing, there's so many good players over here, right? It's just, from my understanding, there's a handful of guys who get out really early, like your Collins, your Victor Hovlands, your Will Zalatoris is like, there's a handful of guys that are really, really good and take advantage of their opportunities early. But there's also 100 times more guys who are just as good, but didn't have that opportunity early, or didn't take that opportunity when they did have it, but it's still good enough to be out there. So it's kind of like you just got to keep chipping away. From my understanding, it's whoever can stick it at the longest until you finally get a sniff on the big tour. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. Just keep working your way through the levels. Every year, if you can keep getting a little bit better, then that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time, I think, for you, mate, with your game. I'd say it's built for the US, and I'm sure you know that as well. So
yeah, hopefully, man.
So the last, I mean, that answers the question there pretty well. But if we were to go over the last month, you've had a couple of different Q schools. You had the Corn Ferry Tour, Q School. What was that? 3-4 weeks ago, and then just last week you had the Latin American Q School off the back of that.
Yeah, so I played this. I was exempted the second stage. There's 3 stages of Q School for Corn Ferry. The goal is to get the final stage. The top 40 get the guaranteed starts. So we had a teammate, Trip Kinney, who got through all 4 stages. He had to play a pre-qualifier. Got through that. Played the first stage. Got through that. Got through second stage. Finished 11th the final stage. Unreal. Not many people get all the way through pre-Q to final stage, so that's a testament to his game. I was exempted the second stage and pretty much did the opposite. I didn't have to play pre-Q, didn't have to play first, and then I missed the second. So I was like, well, okay. Funny how it goes sometimes. So I missed at Bear Creek. I shot maybe 4, I think I shot 5 under. The winner shot maybe 15, and the cut line was 9. So they took 9, I think it was 19 in ties to the final stage. That was a bummer. Like I put a lot of pressure on myself that week in hindsight to get through, because you're playing for your job for the next year, and it had been like 2 years of nothing, So it was in hindsight I put probably way too much pressure on myself, and I got off to a good start. I shot 3 under in the first round, 4 under in the second round. I had a horrendous day on the third day. Kind of took my foot off the gas and shot 4 over, and then shot 1 or 2 under on the last day. So there's a lot of learning in that, but also a tough pill to swallow. So it's kind of you take what you can from it and go to the next one. After that, I spent a week in Iowa, moved down to Dallas, had a week
that's
here.
A big move.
Yeah, it was a big move. It was a big drive.
You drove down?
Yeah, chuck everything in a U-Haul and drove down by myself. So that was a lot of fun.
How long was the drive?
It's like an 11-hour drive, but when you're in a moving truck, you have to drive so slow. So it took me like 12 and a half to 13 hours. So I just woke up real early in the morning and just did it all in one day. So that was good. My agent lives in the same building that I do, so he helped me carry everything up now. So that's good. And then went to Latin Q School last week. That was in Mexico on the west coast. So it was a cool spot, really hot, really humid. Played well, came second. So that's good. It gives me guaranteed starts through the first half of the season. So 12 event season. That's awesome. I get the first 6. So that's nice to finally say that I can belong to a tour that has a pathway to the US, and then
for sure
have some events on the schedule for a change is nice.
Yeah. So what have you got to do? What have you got to do to actually get onto the Corn Ferry Tour next year? I know there's some sort of exemptions depending on where you finish on the main lists. What do you have to do?
Yeah, so Latin is pretty much it's the same as Canada and China. So those 3 are the feeder tours. We've had a few guys play in China and do really well. So Latin's very similar. The winner of the money list gets full status on Corn Ferry. I think 2 to 5 get conditional status, so you go to final stage. Top 10 goes to final stage, and top 25 goes to second stage. Top 60 keep their card for the following year, I think. And if you win 3 times, you get the automatic promotion to Corn Ferry.
Boom.
So that's a goal. I just got to try and go out and dominate the tour and see what happens.
Yeah. That's it, man. That's it. Have you got any guys that are going to be playing on the tour that you can travel with that you know, or people from the past few years that you can, get some advice from? Like I know, like are you tight with Ryan Ruffles? Like he did pretty well, I think, a year or two ago down there.
Yeah, I actually don't know Ruffles at all.
Okay.
But the good thing about being down here in Dallas is there are a couple guys out here. Like one of the
Yeah.
guys who's made it on tour now, Harry Higgs. He plays at Trinity
Oh,
Forest
yeah.
as well, and he got through Latin to get his Corn Ferry tour card.
Oh, that's
Maybe
nice.
1 or 2 years after he got his PGA tour card. So there's
Yeah.
him. There's Austin Smotherman. He's a guy who's on tour now. There's a guy, Matt Gilchrist, who got through Latin as well. So there's a bunch of guys that play Latin out of Trinity Forest. So it's good. We've got a good group of guys to travel with. I played a bunch of college golf with a lot of the guys going to be there down Latin as well. Like last week, I played with Charlie Hillier was down there, so another Kiwi. So that was good. He got conditional status.
Okay.
So I'm sure we'll travel a bunch together. So it'll be nice.
Yeah. That's cool. Is Trinity Forest, is that the golf course where Altus Performance is at? Is that
Yep.
Cam, like Jordan Speaks coaching that, eh?
Yep. So Cam and Corey, they've got a little studio on the back of the range. Same with the SMU team. They practice out there as well.
Oh, that's cool, mate. That's yeah. I mean, when does the season start for you for that tour, for the Latin American tour?
Yeah, so I've got 2 weeks here in Dallas, and then it starts. First event's the Argentina Open, and then the Chile Open the week after. First 2 weeks of December.
Okay, gotcha. So a couple of events this side of Christmas. And I think that's the interesting thing about that Latin American tour is that a lot of the events are actually national opens, right?
Yeah, I think over half the season is, which is kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah, that's epic. That's exciting, mate. Well, we're flying through here, bro. We're at 52 minutes, and I haven't actually got to the fans' questions yet. But so we'll get stuck into that. We've got quite a few. I think you'll know who half of the questions are from, and then we'll finish with some quickfire questions, and then one final question. But the bit of a light-hearted one from your boy DSAC. He wants to know what your go-to Chipotle order is.
Oh, mate, too easy. Brown rice. You always ask. So what I've learned at Chipotle is they're pretty stingy with their servings of meat. So you can get a little single portion of meat, or what you do is you ask for more rice. So if they give you 1 spoonful of meat, it looks funny. So you go double rice, which is free. Then they give you basically double chicken. So I do that. I like pico, salsa, corn, guac, lettuce. Go, Tom.
And that's you. There you go. This is a question from Anthony Coors, who's actually a player that I've started working with back here in New Zealand. I think he's at Hamilton Blue like yourself. He wants to know thoughts on taking the bomb squad global.
So AK was one of the guys in the older group of guys when I was a junior at St Andrews. So there was Anthony Coers, Andrew Kingham, Harry Corkle, and they all hit it really far. And I was 10, so they hit it 100 yards past me. They called themselves the bomb squad. So
right.
I don't know, AK. I don't think anyone ever will hit it as far as you guys.
I think you've got it. I think you've got them covered now, mate. All right, next question, and he's got 2 questions from Maddie Tip Lady. What did you learn from your junior golfing days that are really helping you now?
Oh, that's a good question. I really like basketball, so I heard a quote from Giannis the other day in an interview when he spent time with Kobe. He told him Kobe told him to always be a kid, and he asked him what does that mean for him, and he said it was always be curious and always be open to learning new things, and never put a time limit on a skill you're trying to learn. So that's probably what I take from junior golf is to do those 3 things still.
That's some good
sometimes
advice.
It's hard, but I think that's cool. Enjoy it.
Nice. I mean, that's some pretty nice learnings, pretty simple advice there. And the next question from Maddie Tip is, what are the keys to your quality on-course attitude? Because you're a guy that likes to walk the fairways with a big smile on his face, mate. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. I think I'm a pretty happy, relaxed dude. So I try to be the same thing on the golf course. Don't try to do anything I'm not. So for me, Posture's big. One thing Rion and I always talk about is never letting my eye level drop. My eye line below the rise. So that way I always make sure my chest is up and my chin's up. That's probably a big thing for me. And then I try to just smile as much as I can.
Yeah, that's awesome. Controlling physiology, I think, is like something people should probably know more about, right? Like chest up, shoulders back, smiling. Like it's got to do wonders for the way that you feel and the way that you think around the golf course. That's for sure.
It's amazing. Like even if you're in a bad mood, if you force yourself to smile, it's pretty hard to like be really angry, or like So it's like you got to. Sometimes you have to force yourself into an attitude, but just know that you can do that. Yeah.
I like that. One of the things that I started doing with some junior golfers, and I should probably suggest it to some older golfers that get quite grumpy as well, is to actually just start skipping down the fairway. If you're ever getting a bit sad or upset, is just to skip down like a little kid. And I'm pretty sure that once you start skipping down the fairway feeling like an idiot, you're not going to be too sad or upset.
Yeah, exactly. That's not bad.
All right, next question. I think you've kind of already answered this, but we'll ask the question anyway. So Jordan Kelly Houston, he's actually really good buddies with Daniel Berger. Went to college with him in Florida, played on the tennis team there, but he's got a huge interest in golf in the States, and he wants to know, where will you base yourself during off weeks, and will you play any Corn Ferry Tour or PGA Tour Monday qualifiers?
Yeah, so I'll move down Dallas, so I'll be down here at Trinity most off weeks. I do have the option in the summer to go up to Iowa, and we do some good contacts in Arizona if it's too cold here in Dallas. So that's where it'll be off weeks. Will I play any Corn Ferry Tour or PGA Tour Mondays? Yep. We're probably going to focus mainly on the Corn Ferry Tour Mondays. January, there's a few Tour Mondays, like Sony Opens in Hawaii, maybe January 10. I think I'll probably play that Monday. But Latin works, so it's like kind of 2 weeks on, like 2 to 3 weeks off. 3 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So in those off weeks, I'm going to pound the Corn Ferry Tour Mondays and see if we can get on.
Yeah, so you'll definitely focus on the Latin American tour first, and then Mondays outside of that.
Yeah, I think that's probably a smart plan for me. I know a lot of guys during a tournament week will maybe the first event before they head down to South America, they'll like play the Monday qualifier. If they get into the event, then they'll stay. If they don't, then they'll fly down to Latin America. But it's kind of hard if you're already down there to come back, play the Monday, and then go back down there. So I think I'll do something similar. And I feel like my game's trending in the right direction. So maybe a Corn Ferry Tour Monday isn't far away.
Nice, mate. Next question from Caden Fennell. What's your favourite course that you've ever played? And what is your favourite club in your bag? And to follow up, what's the best shot you've ever hit with it?
Ooh. That's a good question. I love playing.
The name on your hoodie.
Yeah, Harvest is Pure. That's in Iowa. It's like a top 50 in the US course. That place is so pure. But I think Olympic Club has been my favorite course in the US.
Okay. Did you play the Transmiss there?
Transmiss, Pat Coast there. Remember my first year, Ruben lost to Will Zalatoris there by 1. I might have came 5th, and then I think the Transmiss. I think it was Transmiss. Me and I played there, and Dan Hillier played as well. So we bucked up for the week and played it too. That was a lot of fun. But I love that course. It's like a bomber's paradise. It's tight. It's long. If you hit it far and you hit your irons good, then you have the opportunity to play really well there. And I like that kind of golf. So that's probably my favorite course. Favorite club. I love 60. I like just hitting spinners everywhere.
The lobby. How good.
Yeah, lob wedge probably. I don't know a favorite shot I've ever hit. I think like today I was just chipping around. I hit like little low nippers, and I think those might be my favorite shots.
Nice, bro. And this is a question from Josh Hears. He wants to know, why do more Kiwis not make it in America?
That's a tough one. It's a long way to come. Which is kind of why we decided to go to college, to try and feel like it's not that far and not that big a jump. But if you think about it, if you're playing back home and down under the whole year, to come to Corn Ferry Tour Q School, it's going to cost you a lot of money. And it could be for only 1 week, like that. It could cost you was it like $5 or $6 to enter US, and then flights over could cost you a couple grand, and then accommodation for a week, a caddy, like that could cost you 10,000 US just like that. And when you're playing for not much cash in New Zealand and Australia, sometimes it's hard to justify that. So it feels like a big jump. I think that's maybe where I've made a good decision to come over early and do that. Aside from that, like, well, I don't know. I think all the best players in the world, they hit it pretty far. Maybe the top 10 in the world, besides Colin, hit it a long way. And I think generally Kiwis do that. Like, when I came to college, I realised I actually do hit it far, but when I was in New Zealand, I didn't think so. Because we grew up with people like Stephen Kugelheim, like Compton Bakari, Nick Coxon, who's like a bomber, yourself, like Toombs. It's like, man, you don't hit it that far in New Zealand, but then when you come over here, you realise you actually do. So I don't know why that doesn't translate that well over here. But I think it's a numbers thing. We just don't have many players. And
do you think, like, I've certainly got the belief that we've got, I reckon maybe, and I could be wrong because I haven't obviously played as much in the US as you, but I would say we've got probably 5 to 10 pretty young guys that I think, given the opportunity and the starts and the time in the right environment, like in the US, where you're kind of rewarded for good play, like I think there's a number of guys that could do it. Do you think that's kind of it? Like, it's just in terms of pathways and opportunities, like you play really well here in NZ, in Australia, even on the Australasian tour. It doesn't really, it can lead you to places, like it's obviously taken Foxy and Dan to places, but you're only 2 or 3 good, like great weeks away in the US from having a tour card on the PGA Tour. Like if you play well at the right times, like, do you think it's anything to do with that?
Yeah, I think Aussie gives you a pretty decent pathway to Asia and Europe, but still, like, to come from Asia to Europe to the US, that's pretty hard. You pretty much have to be top 50 in the world. Get into WGCs and majors and then get your PGA points up that way. Otherwise, you got to go through the Corn Ferry Tour route. PGA Tour is just so hard to get to. So I think if you're constantly playing down Aussie without really having that goal in the back of your mind, it's a long way away. So I think Europe is attainable if you play really well, and that's a great place to play, especially now that they're pumping way more cash into it. But it's quite a journey, I think, to get to the US just to get on the Corn Ferry Tour. You
so
really have to
college
get
is pathway, right?
Yeah, I think like college, they've got like PGA Tour University now. So like if you're top in your senior year, if you're like a top ranked player, you're going to get a certain amount of PGA Tour starts, Corn Ferry status, or at worst like Latin or Canada status. Like you get something, which is good. Cool. Whereas you just don't have that opportunity in New Zealand unless you're willing to come over.
Yeah. That's cool, man. There's some good insights there. And we've got one more question from your good buddy Voki. And I think he might be a bit upset or a bit sad by the move, but he just asked, why Dallas?
Oh, why Dallas? Funny, when I was thinking about moving, Voki was actually the one who told me he liked Dallas a lot. So I looked into Dallas. He since has gone off Dallas, and I think he's going to do Arizona because he loves Arizona. I don't know. I like it. I like sports. I like being close to the American Airlines Centers. Go watch the Mavs is pretty cool.
Yeah.
One flight back home is huge for me, and one flight everywhere is good. Biggest thing was to try and find more competition. Take that, Mike. No, I'm just kidding. Just like more tour pros to be around. It's sweet, Like I was on the range the other day, and then someone pulled up behind me, and I turned around, and it was Jordan Spieth. I was like, dude, that's so cool. So I peppered Jordan Spieth with a few questions. That's stuff awesome. Like you don't really get in Iowa when I was deciding to move. So I didn't know like there'd be heaps of tour pros down here that are at that level, but it's nice to be like rubbing shoulders with people like that. And I think, I don't know, the people you surround yourself with will definitely have a big impact on how hard you work every day and where you're going to go. So 100%. I think it'll be nice to play with people who have similar goals, who are a little bit older, a little bit more experienced. Hopefully, I'm hoping that rubs off on me.
I'm sure it will, mate. I'm sure it will. Well, that's that's all the questions from the fans that we had that not worth asking, but that were relevant for the
Nice.
for the podcast. We'll get into the quickfire questions, mate, which just rattle through them pretty quickly. There's only 4 questions.
Okay.
So I just want to know who your favourite player is.
Oh, Tiger.
Tiger
And
Woods.
then probably Colin. I love watching Colin.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Dream 4-ball?
I think I'd love to play with Tiger. I love Michael Jordan, so I'd love to play with MJ.
Yep.
I don't know. I'd probably say like Dad or something. Dad loves Michael Jordan too, and Tiger, so that'd be a pretty good.
That would be pretty sick. All right, the one major that you want to win.
Oh, Masters. That's pretty easy. Masters, then British Open.
Okay. You've just put on the green jacket. How are you celebrating?
Lots of drinks. I don't know. Man, you could do whatever you want after a green jacket, really. Hopefully, like all your mates and family are there, and
yeah,
it'd be pretty sweet. Well,
okay. I'll ask you one more. So you've won and you're drinking lots. What are you drinking? What's the drink of choice? A good Waikato draft or?
Oh, mate, Waikato. Yeah, probably a bit of Waikato. Anything that's cold and on tap, probably.
Nice one, mate. Nice. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for the fan questions, for the quickfire questions, and the final question that I want to ask you, and it's a bit of a deep one, but it's when it's all said and done, how do you want your career to be remembered?
Ooh. I don't know how I'd want it to be remembered, but I just want to prove to myself that I've done everything that I could to, get as far as I can. Whatever that is, that's what that is. I'd love to get more juniors involved in the game in the US. In New Zealand. And I'd love to get more young guys coming over here to play. I'd just like to see more pros make it from New Zealand. It'd be awesome to be on tour and have 10 guys out there all from New Zealand. That'd be awesome. Just like the Aussies do, But I feel like everyone from New Zealand's part of a little team. So it'd be so cool to get more people out here doing that. On the other side of that, I'd love to get more island kids playing, because I was pretty lucky. My dad's family's from Samoa, mum's family's from the Cook Islands. They both grew up in Wellington, but I was lucky because my dad and granddad wanted to do it at the same time. But often that's not really the route for island kids and Māori kids. They normally go to the contact sports, which is a tough grind. And you have no body when you're done, which is tough. So a lot of them have a lot of athletic ability, and to put that on the back of a golf ball could be pretty cool.
Mate, that's epic. Well, I'm sure you're going to do all of those things and much more in your career. I think there's a lot of ability and a lot of opportunity, and I'm pretty excited to keep following your journey from afar. And hopefully we can catch up in person and have a game or have a beer. And but in the meanwhile, mate, just keep doing what you're doing and flying the Kiwi flag, mate.
Thanks, bro. Yeah.
Thanks for jumping on, mate.
Cheers, Cam. All the best, eh?
All good. Cheers, mate.